Why? Because the Muslims won't look. Who's going around today when people die? Christians die in the tribulation. How do they die? The book says their head's going to be cut off. Who's going around today taking people's head off as a punishment for going against their religion? The Muslims. There's no other religious group that does that. All right. And when did this happen? It happened recently. And as they begin to take over the West, that is, they've already taken over Britain. They're all close to taking over France. So all these power brokers in the European Union, in the old Roman Empire, right now, folks, if you go look at the old Roman Empire, the Muslims have about 65% of it. And God says this is where the Antichrist is going to come from. And I showed you earlier that he said he's going to be an Assyrian. It's going to be a Muslim, friends. Just like I can be certain to say that this guy right here, the false prophet, is going to be a Jew. So how are they going to make peace with Israel? Number one, the Muslims are going to have their Mahdi. That's what they call him, their Messiah. And the Jews is going to have their prophet Elijah. Those two are going to come together in tandem to bring peace between the Muslim world and the Jews. That's what makes it work, friends. The Muslims are not going to accept somebody outside of that because nobody else would understand them. The Jews won't accept anybody outside of the Jewish nation. Why? Because nobody else understands them. But if you got a Muslim antichrist and a Jewish false prophet, then you got a tandem that works for both sides. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so we've seen that he's going to be a political guy and a religious guy, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell on to worship him. Then you see he starts doing signs and he fools everybody. And then we get here to starting with verse 14. We said that now is a change. This is the start of the great tribulation. And this is what we want to look at. So when the great tribulation comes on, in the second 3.5 year period right here, in this second 3.5 year period, this is where you can start at Revelation 13, verse verse 14, right? This point right here. And look what starts happening. Starting in verse 14, he deceived those who dwell on the earth by the signs. So the signs had already taken place. He's now got the confidence of the whole world. Okay. Now, because they are deceived, he pulls off the mask. And now that the mask is off, what does he do? He's granted by God. He was granted by God to do those signs in front of the beast, telling those on the earth to do what? They are to make an image. People are already starting to do this, friends, with AI. You see it happening in a rapid pace. It's the technology is there, but it's going to get really, it's going to get better, much better than what it is today. To where this guy is going to be able to take this image of the beast who was wounded and lives, and he's going to give breath, that is life. What is breath in the Bible? The breath in the Bible is life. He's going to make this image come alive. And back in those days, back in even in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, you read this passage and you're like, how in the world is he going to do that? Now, today, when we read this, it makes all the sense in the world. First thing I think about is some artificial intelligence. That's exactly what's going to happen. Now I can understand it. People back in John's day could never understand it. Like, how in the world are you gonna give life to a statue, a stone? No, it won't be a stone. It's going to be some AI generated mess. Life to the image of this beast, who should both speak and cause many as would not worship the image of the beast. Listen right here. To be killed, both small and great, doesn't matter. This is where Jesus said in the book of Luke that parents are going to turn in their kids if they're Christians, and kids are going to turn on their parents if they're Christian. They're going to tell on each other. People are going to just, if you don't have this mark, people are going to turn you in. This is where the believers are going to go into hiding. And a lot of them, friends, a lot of them are going to die. To receive a mark on their right hand and on their forehead, and that no one would be able to buy or sell except if they have the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, will there be a physical mark? I do believe there's going to be a physical mark. Why? Because this is the way people are going to be able to identify those who don't have it. Not the fact that you don't go to a store because you can't purchase anything, right? Because you're locked out of the system. You have to show some kind of identification to get it. But they're going to be a physical mark where people can know whether you have it or not. All right. Will it be 666? No, man. The devil is smarter than that. He's not going to come up with some system where he stamps 666 on your head. Come on. Everybody be looking for that number, and even unbelievers today know better than to take it. So no, it won't be that. It's going to be something, whatever. QR code. I have no idea, none, and I'm not going to speculate on that. Now, I want to take you back to chapter 6, where it starts talking about what happens to these people and who's leading this. Is it the Antichrist that's causing this? No, friend. No. Look, we go back to verse 14. And he, so who's the he? Now notice, God never changed who he's talking about. We're talking about the false prophet. Now you would think that since the devil is literally inside of the Antichrist, that it would be him who would be the worst one. Mm-mm. No, he's not. This so-called religious side is worse. They have the same nature. But look at what he does. So now he goes again. So the link to he, right? Then he goes here. This link to he again. So we're talking about the same person, right? So he was granted to give power. Then you go here. He causes both small and great to get. Did the Antichrist do it? Nope. It's not the Antichrist doing this stuff by himself, friends. And most people, when they start talking about the end times, they don't even bring up the false prophet. As if he's just some little innocent bystander being dragged along by the Antichrist. No, he isn't, friends. He's the instigator. Antichrist is a bad dude. The worst guy who's ever going to live. The second worst guy who ever going to live is this guy right here. He's worse, in my opinion, than the Antichrist. He's the one who's deceiving everybody. The Antichrist is making people love him. He's the one that started making people worship the Antichrist. Look, it was given power to him to do this. What does it say the Antichrist, besides in 2 Thessalonians? He goes along with the plan. He shows himself to be God. After he's had this deadly wound and come back, he starts believing he's a God. But it's this guy who actually makes everybody else believe he's a God. So he does this. He causes everybody to worship this guy. Now look, and he's the one, verse 15, that if you don't worship the beast, he's the one that's instigating and promoting killing the believers. Who's doing this? Who's doing this? A Jewish person. Kevin, man, that's a stretch. No, ain't no stretch. I just showed you. I just showed you the false prophet and how he's going to come from Israel. And the Mahdi is going to be the Antichrist. You're going to have a Muslim and a Jew doing this, friends. That's what's going to happen. Now, how do I know? Now you go back to chapter 6. Look at this. Look at what God says that these people do. These two I'm talking about right here. Look at what they do. So here's the cry of the martyrs. When he opened the seal, he seen those who were slain. Why? They were slain for the word of God. They were believers during the tribulation and for the testimony which they had. And they cried out in righteous indignation or righteous, they want justice. And God says, hey, wait a minute. There's some more believers later during this 7-year period who's also going to be killed. They're going to be killed just like you. And the Bible later says that these folks, how they're going to die? They're going to get their head chopped off. Who does that? The Muslims does that, friends, just like the Romans crucified people. So it's a combination, friends. Combination of Jews, combination of Muslims, Antichrist and a false prophet. And these two are going to go around killing a bunch of people and making the others worship the beast. Okay, so there you have it. Now, let's get back to this timeline. Oh, I want to show you, before we go to the timeline itself, I want to show you this. Let's go look at what Jesus had to say concerning that same time. Now, look, we'll do just a quick comparison. All right. So Jesus starts talking about, hey, people are going to be deceived. Say, make sure nobody deceive you. So now here comes the deception of the Antichrist and the false prophet. We just talked about that. So how? He's by peace. He's going to deceive many. That's what we read in the book of Revelation. So here's your white horse. So the first thing in verse 5 comes this white horse, the deception. Then after that comes the red horse, the wars, right? And after the wars take place, what's going to happen? You got nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And here you go, right here, famines. Now you have the black horse. Same thing you've seen in Revelation. Then he says, hey, there's going to be pestilence. Here you have the pale horse. See what's going on? Jesus is talking about the same event, the tribulation. He's not talking about the church, friends. He's talking to his disciples about what's going to happen to Israel. And then the seal we see right here, that there was a great earthquake. And this all happens the beginning of sorrows. What is that? That's your first 3.5 years. That's the beginning of sorrows. So if you go back and take a look at it, see how it lines up with the chart. That's what Jesus is talking about. The beginning of sorrows with the red horse I mean, with the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse, and then the big earthquake that happened in seal number 6. Okay, then